Good morning, welcome back. Another day working on the 48WL. I took the time to actually clean the seat posts. This thing was grimy and gross. I had no intentions of actually cleaning it when I first put it into the bike, but the other day I went to put the seat on and I looked at the tube here and thought, well, I probably should clean it. Thinking there's probably 75 years worth of grease in this thing and all over it. So I pulled it, I let it soak in the parts wash for 6 days. And that got most of the grease to become pretty liquidy. I scrubbed off a lot of it with a wire brush, with one of these brass brushes here, and that seemed to do a good job of getting most of the grease off and out and around. And then I ultrasonic this for an hour. I put it through 2 revolutions, 30 minutes a piece, and that got all the parts super clean. They actually look really good. I'm very impressed with how they turned out. So this thing is ready for reassembly. Today I've got a couple of reference manuals laid out here, and I just wanted to show you guys what I have and kind of give you an idea of the different books that you can get to show how to put these things back together. There's probably videos online showing how this is done. I'm not exactly sure. I've got a couple good reference manuals here. I also took pictures of the whole unit together and as I was taking it apart, so I had a visual reference of what pieces went where. That's another good way to do these things. If you have the chance and you have a good camera with you, most of us have a good cell phone now, snap pictures as you're taking things apart. That way you have a good visual reference of how they go back together. But if you didn't do those things or you don't have that option, a couple of manuals or a couple of books that you can use to show you how to put this together. What I have is the 45 engine overhaul manual. This is the 1929 to 1952 manual, and on page 201 it does show the breakdown. It shows you how to put everything together and tells you about measurements and whatnot, so that way you can set it up for the right rider. I also have the 45 operation and maintenance manual. This is the 1940 to 1952 manual. And on page 25, it gives you the servicing of the saddle spring post and kind of the adjustment of the nuts on the bottom. It's a very good detailed picture. Lastly, I have the Bruce Palmer's How to Restore Your Harley Davidson manual. And on page 68, it has a really good breakdown of the seat post and how everything fits together, and the part numbers. So if you're looking for part numbers, this is a great reference here. It also tells you how to set it up for a rider under 130 pounds, 130 to 150, 150 to 220, over 220 pounds. So it's a good visual reference, and it has the actual breakdown of each piece and kind of where they go. So if you didn't take pictures and you didn't remember how this went together, or you bought something that was not together, this is a good reference for you. With that being said, we're going to get started. We're going to grab the top plunger part here, and this is kind of how this feeds together. This is the first spring that goes in, so this one just falls in place here. There's 2 of these springs that are the same, so this spring then falls into there as well, and then from there this spring actually goes onto this side of the bar, and then the bar pushes in, and then there's this cap nut here. So we'll go ahead and push this on, and then we'll thread that cap nut in place. And since all these parts are nice and clean, they do fit together real well, and everything is playing real nice right now. I'm very excited about that. Unfortunately, I don't have the proper wrench to tighten this up, so I'm going to do this kind of the wrong way. Now next, what you're going to do is you're going to feed the top spring on. That's this long guy here, and there's 2 of those, and they're the same size. So that feeds into place like this. We'll pull that rod back out. So then you'll have this type of assembly here. From there, if you look at your reference guide, you have one of these guys here, and it shows that the smaller of the 2 ends, as you can see there's two ends here. This end feeds up and holds that spring into place. Next, there's a middle spring, which is this shorter guy here. That feeds onto that. And then from there, you have another one of these little separator collar guys, and that feeds the opposite way, where you got the fat end there. That goes into that little spring and holds it together just like that. Next, we'll put on there our last large spring here, and that'll feed into place. And this is where it's going to get tricky here because we're running out of space. So now we've got that fat end, we've got just a little bit of threaded end showing. Now, from that threaded end, you will have this guy here. Now, looking at the manual, it shows that this portion, the little nipple side, goes into the spring. So we're going to start threading that on. And to keep the shaft itself from spinning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab in between these springs with a pair of needle nose pliers to kind of hold it in place. So hold the shaft in place and then thread this on the rest of the way. That's a 13/16. Use a wrench here. I know that some of these threads are not in good shape. I wasn't able to put enough pressure onto the shaft itself, so I've got a pair of needle nose vice grips. And I'm going to attempt to hold this in place with these so it's not spinning on the shaft. I'm trying not to cause a bunch of friction on the shaft and mess something up. I've gone ahead and unassembled everything here. That way you can kind of see the assembly, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab out of the top side of this with a pair of vice grips. That way I can hold everything in place, because what I'm running into right now is I'm just spinning that shaft. There's nothing to stop it from spinning inside of here, and unfortunately I can't get my needle nose pliers into there properly. So I'm going to leave the springs that are inside the plunger itself in the plunger so they're ready to go. And I'm going to grab a pair of vice grips to actually clamp down onto that to be able to spin that nut freely. I'm going to add a little oil to it as well, so it has a little lubricant there, and that way it should thread on properly. I'm going to spray a little bit of Freol onto the bottom here and then onto the threads. Just so that surface is lubricated. I'm trying not to mar up this end too bad as well. I believe I should be able to thread this on now. Probably could have stuck it in the vise, but I decided not to do that. You have to be careful too, because this end is also threaded and that cap can come off. So you don't want to tighten too much on that and then risk loosening that as well. Thankfully, everything is playing nicely together right now. It's nice to have these ratchet end wrenches. It does help to move things along quicker. I'll work with that for a little bit here. And what you're going to want to do too is take a measurement from end to end here, and it shows that at that lock nut, which is just before lock nut, at this point here we should be at 12 inches. So I want to take and measure that out to make sure I'm at the right point. We've got a little ways to go yet. That sets me up for the 150 to 220 pound range. Check it again. We are right at 12 inches. So what I'm measuring from is from this point here to the end of the springs. So from here to here. That's 12 inches. So that sets me up for the right range for my weight class. So from there, the next piece to go in is one of the locking nuts. So we'll thread that down. And then next, we'll take the second locking nut and we'll thread that into place. And those are 9/16, so we're going to go ahead and lock those together so that way everything is where it needs to be. I think I can get 2 wrenches on here. Give it enough of a twist. Maybe not. I think that's good enough, hopefully. Next, we need this guy here, and this little guy has a squared off edge on it. And that squared off edge sits down toward the bottom of the frame. There's actually a notch in the bottom of the tube for this square piece to set into. So we'll thread that on next. That's a 1/2 inch technically. We'll get my wrench on there and we'll give it a little snug down. We'll go ahead and we'll loosen the vice grips up. And that's the assembled assembly. This is exactly how it should look here. This is everything in place that it needs to have And there's a little bit of thread sticking on the bottom, and that's for the bottom nut, which I don't have. There's a lock washer and a bottom nut that actually goes onto this, and I don't currently have that. So I'll need to get one of those to be able to keep this in its place. So from there, we're actually going to feed this back into the tube here and thread that back into place. And there we have it, guys. One assembled seat spring assembly. Fairly easy, fairly straightforward. It's nice to have it all cleaned up and looking, you know, as new as it can for 75 years old. Obviously there's some wear on it and it's been sitting for a little while, and some rust had started on the springs here, but it looks like there's a lot of life left in these, and I really do feel that this will last me a long time. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys this process to show you how easy it is to, you know, maintain one of these. The hardest part was getting it clean with all the grime and the grease and whatnot. I mean, all of these springs were covered in grease. I mean, absolutely completely covered. When I pulled this tube out of the bike, it made such a disgusting sound. And thankfully, I was able to get it cleaned off with a mineral spirits bath. Like I said, I let it soak for 6 days. And it took that long to actually get this stuff to kind of start to break up enough to be able to scrub it off. Otherwise, it was a really thick, old oil. So after that, I put it in the ultrasonic, like I said, for an hour, and that cleaned up the rest of it and allowed me the opportunity to be able to, you know, blow the stuff off with air. I did hit, you know, these parts with brake part cleaner, you know, and cleaned off the rest of the stuff and just made it super nice. So now this is ready for reassembly. I can put it back into the bike. The next step is to scrub that tube out, so that seat tube assembly that's in the motorcycle still has some grease in there, and I have plugged the bottom, and I've been spraying brake cleaner in there and letting all that stuff kind of get in the bottom. The next step is to pull that plug out and then wash the inside of that, so I can get a lot of that grime out of there and get that as clean as possible. So that way when I put everything back together, it's as clean as it's going to be. Anyway, I wanted to show you guys this process. I thank you for following along. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. My subscriptions are continuing to increase, but I'm noticing that a lot of my folks that are watching these videos are not subscribed. So do me that favor, subscribe to my channel. You know, the hope is to be able to grow what I'm doing. Please share with your friends. You know, I know a lot of guys are out there are into these types of videos, and it's nice to be able to see a visual reference as to, you know, how to put some of this stuff together. I know for myself, I like seeing this stuff, you know, live, or seeing a way to do it. Sure, it's great to see it in pictures and get an understanding of it, but man, it's really kind of cool to watch it, you know, come apart and go together. Anyway, I thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. Take care.